Have you ever wondered what it sounds like when an entire nation's heart breaks? When a people who once stood tall watch their world crumble into dust? Today we're diving deep into one of the most emotionally raw books in the entire Bible, Lamentations. This isn't just ancient poetry. This is humanity at its most vulnerable, crying out in the darkness after losing everything they held sacred. Picture this: Jerusalem, the golden city, reduced to rubble. The temple, where God himself was believed to dwell, nothing but smoking ruins. Families torn apart, children starving in the streets, and survivors asking the haunting question that echoes through millennia: where is God when everything falls apart? That's exactly what Lamentations captures, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why this book of mourning contains some of the most profound truths about suffering, hope, and the human condition ever written. But before we journey into these ancient laments, let me ask you something. Have you ever experienced a moment when your world completely collapsed? When everything you thought was secure suddenly wasn't? Keep that feeling in mind as we explore Lamentations, because this book speaks directly to those moments of absolute devastation that every human being faces at some point in their life. Now, when most people think about the Bible, they picture stories of triumph, miracles, and victory. But Lamentations is different. This is raw human emotion on display. It's grief without filters, despair without pretense, and yet, buried within its tears, there's something incredibly powerful waiting to be discovered. Lamentations was written in the aftermath of one of history's most catastrophic events for the Jewish people, the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians in 586 BCE. Imagine watching your entire civilization vanish in smoke. The city walls that protected you for generations, gone. The temple that represented God's presence among your people, demolished. Your friends and family either dead or dragged away as captives. This wasn't just a military defeat. This was the apparent end of everything that gave life meaning. The book consists of 5 chapters, each one a poem of mourning, and here's what makes it even more remarkable. The first 4 chapters are written as acrostic poems in Hebrew. That means each verse begins with the successive letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Even in their deepest grief, even when words seemed inadequate, the authors crafted their pain into beautiful, structured poetry. There's something profoundly human about that, the need to create art from ashes, to find form in chaos. Chapter 1 opens with one of the most heart-wrenching images in all of literature. How lonely sits the city that was full of people. How like a widow she has become, she who was great among the nations. She who was a princess among the provinces has become a slave. Can you feel the contrast? From fullness to emptiness, from greatness to desolation, from princess to slave. Jerusalem is personified as a grieving widow, completely alone in her suffering. But here's where it gets even more intense. The writer doesn't just describe Jerusalem's physical destruction. He dives deep into the spiritual and emotional devastation. She weeps bitterly in the night, with tears on her cheeks. Among all her lovers, she has none to comfort her. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They have become her enemies. Think about that image for a moment. A woman crying alone in the darkness, abandoned by everyone she thought she could trust. Her lovers have become indifferent. Her friends have turned into enemies. This isn't just about a city's military defeat. This is about the complete breakdown of relationships, trust, and community. It's about feeling utterly alone in the universe. The first chapter continues to pile on the devastating imagery. The roads to Zion mourn, for none come to the festival. All her gates are desolate. Her priests groan. Her virgins are afflicted, and she herself suffers bitterly. Even the roads are mourning. Even the gates feel desolate. The priests who once sang joyful songs now groan in anguish. The young women who should be celebrating life are afflicted with grief. And then comes one of the most powerful verses in the entire book. Is it nothing to you, all you who pass by? Look and see if there is any sorrow like my sorrow, which was brought upon me, which the Lord inflicted on the day of his fierce anger. This is the cry of someone who feels their pain is so unique, so overwhelming, that surely no one else has ever experienced anything like it. Yet paradoxically, it's exactly this feeling that makes the book so universally relatable. Chapter 2 intensifies the emotional journey. Here we see God himself portrayed as the one behind Jerusalem's destruction. The Lord has become like an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all its palaces. He has laid in ruins its strongholds, and he has multiplied in the daughter of Judah mourning and lamentation. This is where Lamentations becomes theologically complex and emotionally devastating. The people aren't just dealing with military defeat. They're wrestling with the possibility that God himself has turned against them. The same God who brought them out of Egypt, who established their nation, who promised to be their protector, now seems to be their destroyer. The Lord has cast off his altar. He has disowned his sanctuary. He has delivered into the hand of the enemy the walls of her palaces. They raised a clamor in the house of the Lord as on the day of festival. The very place where people came to worship, to find peace, to connect with the divine, has become a place of enemy occupation and desecration. But chapter 2 also introduces us to some of the most haunting imagery in the book. My eyes are spent with weeping. My stomach churns. My bile is poured out to the ground because of the destruction of the daughter of my people, because infants and babes faint in the streets of the city. This isn't abstract theology. This is the reality of human suffering. Children dying of starvation in the streets while their mothers watch helplessly. The writer even describes mothers eating their own children during the siege. Should women eat the fruit of their womb, the children of their tender care? This level of desperation and horror is almost unimaginable, yet it represents the absolute bottom of human experience, the place where normal moral boundaries collapse under the weight of survival. As we move into chapter 3, something remarkable begins to happen. This is the longest chapter in Lamentations, and it's where we encounter some of the most famous and hope-filled passages in the entire book. But it doesn't start that way. It begins with more darkness. I am the man who has seen affliction under the rod of his wrath. He has driven and brought me into darkness without any light. The speaker here seems to be representing the entire community, taking on the role of the suffering servant who bears the weight of collective pain. He has made my flesh and my skin waste away. He has broken my bones. He has besieged and enveloped me with bitterness and tribulation. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead of long ago. But then, right in the middle of this deepest darkness, comes one of the most beautiful passages in all of Scripture. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. This is absolutely stunning when you think about it. In the depths of despair, when everything seems lost, when God himself appears to be the enemy, the writer suddenly remembers something fundamental about God's character. Not his power, not his justice, not his wrath, but his steadfast love and mercy. The Hebrew word for steadfast love here is chesed, which refers to covenant loyalty, the kind of love that doesn't give up even when the beloved is unfaithful. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. After chapters of crying out in anguish, suddenly there's this call to quiet waiting. Not passive resignation, but active hope in the midst of suffering. The chapter continues with what might be the most psychologically insightful passage about suffering in all of ancient literature. It is good for a man that he bear the yoke in his youth. Let him sit alone in silence when it is laid on him. Let him put his mouth in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him give his cheek to the one who strikes him. Let him be filled with insults. This isn't about being a doormat or accepting abuse. This is about recognizing that sometimes suffering has a purpose, that enduring hardship can develop character and resilience. The writer is suggesting that there's value in learning to bear difficulty, especially when we're young and still forming our understanding of life. For the Lord will not cast off forever, but though he cause grief, he will have compassion according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he does not willingly afflict or grieve the children of men. This is a crucial turning point in the book's theology. Yes, God may allow or even cause suffering, but it's not because he enjoys it. His fundamental nature is compassionate love. Chapter 3 also contains what might be the book's most important theological statement about suffering. Who has spoken, and it came to pass, unless the Lord has commanded it? Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that good and bad come? This isn't fatalism. It's recognition that in a world where God is sovereign, everything that happens must somehow fit within his ultimate purposes, even the things that seem purely evil. But the chapter doesn't end with abstract theology. It returns to very human emotions. You have wrapped yourself with a cloud so that no prayer can pass through. You have made us scum and refuse among the peoples. Even in the midst of hope, there's still this sense of abandonment, of prayers that seem to bounce off the ceiling. Chapter 4 brings us back to the devastating reality of Jerusalem's destruction, but now with a slightly different perspective. How the gold has grown dim, how the pure gold is changed. The holy stones lie scattered at the head of every street. The precious things that once seemed permanent and valuable are now worthless debris scattered in the roads. The chapter describes the reversal of fortunes in vivid detail. Those who once feasted on delicacies perish in the streets. Those who were brought up in purple embrace ash heaps. The wealthy and privileged now scavenge for survival. Social hierarchies have completely collapsed. But chapter 4 also contains some of the book's most disturbing imagery about the siege. The hands of compassionate women have boiled their own children. They became their food during the destruction of the daughter of my people. This repetition of the earlier theme emphasizes just how completely normal human relationships and instincts broke down under extreme duress. The chapter ends with a recognition that Jerusalem's punishment is complete. The punishment of your iniquity, O daughter of Zion, is accomplished. He will keep you in exile no longer. There's a sense that the worst is over, that the debt has been paid. Chapter 5, the final chapter, is structured differently from the others. It's not an acrostic poem, but rather a communal prayer, a direct appeal to God from the entire suffering community. It begins with a simple but profound request. Remember, O Lord, what has befallen us. Look and see our disgrace. This opening is psychologically brilliant. When people are suffering, one of their deepest fears is that their pain will be forgotten, that it doesn't matter to anyone. The prayer asks God simply to remember, to see, to acknowledge what has happened. The chapter catalogs the various ways life has been turned upside down. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, our homes to foreigners. We have become orphans, fatherless. Our mothers are like widows. The basic securities of life, property, family, identity, have all been lost. We get our bread at the peril of our lives because of the sword in the wilderness. Our skin is hot as an oven with the burning heat of famine. Women are ravished in Zion, young women in the towns of Judah. The simple act of finding food has become life-threatening. Basic human dignity has been stripped away. The most poignant verse might be, "The joy of our hearts has ceased. Our dancing has been turned to mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. Woe to us, for we have sinned." The complete absence of joy, the transformation of celebration into grief, the loss of honor and dignity, all of this is connected to a recognition of moral failure. But the book doesn't end with despair. The final verses contain both darkness and light. But you, O Lord, reign forever. Your throne endures to all generations. Why do you forget us forever? Why do you forsake us for so many days? Here's the remarkable thing about this ending. It's simultaneously a statement of faith and a cry of abandonment. Yes, God reigns forever, but from our perspective, it feels like he's forgotten us. This tension isn't resolved, it's simply held in balance. The very last verse is particularly striking. Restore us to yourself, O Lord, that we may be restored. Renew our days as of old. But if you have utterly rejected us, you are very angry with us indeed. The book ends with a prayer for restoration, but also with the honest acknowledgement that complete rejection remains a possibility. Some manuscripts and traditions actually repeat verse 21 after verse 22, so the book doesn't end on such a dark note. But the original ending is powerfully honest about the uncertainty that suffering people face. Will God restore us? We hope so, but we can't be sure. So what does all of this mean for us today? Why should we care about an ancient book of mourning over a city most of us have never visited? First, Lamentations validates the human experience of suffering. In a culture that often pressures us to stay positive or look on the bright side, this book says it's okay to grieve deeply, to feel abandoned, to wrestle with difficult questions about God and justice and meaning. The book doesn't rush to easy answers or cheap comfort. Second, it shows us that faith and doubt can coexist. The writers of Lamentations don't lose their belief in God, but they're brutally honest about their struggles with that belief. They model a kind of faith that can hold both hope and despair in tension without resolving the contradiction too quickly. Third, Lamentations demonstrates the power of putting pain into words. Even in their darkest moments, these writers created beautiful poetry from their suffering. They show us that there's something healing about giving artistic form to our deepest hurts. Fourth, the book reveals that community suffering requires communal response. Lamentations isn't just individual therapy. It's a whole people processing trauma together. It reminds us that healing from major losses often requires collective grief and shared hope. Fifth, it points us toward a different kind of hope. Not the naive optimism that says everything will work out fine, but the mature hope that says even if things don't work out the way we want, there's still something worth holding on to. The steadfast love of God, the possibility of restoration, the meaning that can emerge from even the darkest experiences. The Book of Lamentations doesn't give us easy answers about why suffering happens or how long it will last. What it does give us is permission to feel the full weight of our pain, to cry out honestly to God, to find beauty and meaning even in the midst of devastation, and to hope for restoration without knowing exactly what form it might take. In our own lives, when we face moments of profound loss, the death of loved ones, the end of relationships, the collapse of dreams, serious illness, financial ruin, or any of the countless ways life can fall apart, Lamentations offers us a model for how to respond. We don't have to pretend everything is fine. We don't have to have all the answers. We can sit in the darkness and cry out to God, knowing that even our most honest complaints are a form of prayer. The book reminds us that suffering is not the end of the story, but it's also not something to be quickly overcome or dismissed. It's part of the human experience that must be fully faced and felt before genuine healing and restoration can begin. As we close, remember that famous passage from chapter 3. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. These words have sustained countless people through their darkest hours, not because they promise that suffering will end immediately, but because they remind us that even in the depths of despair, love and mercy are still flowing toward us, fresh every single day. That's the ultimate message of Lamentations, that in our worst moments, when everything seems lost, when even God seems absent or hostile, there's still something deeper and more permanent than our current suffering. There's still steadfast love. There's still the possibility of restoration. There's still hope for new mercies tomorrow morning. The Book of Lamentations doesn't offer us cheap comfort or easy answers, but it offers us something far more valuable. The truth that we're not alone in our suffering, that our pain matters, and that even in the darkest night, dawn is still possible.